In the days immediately following Jay Slater's disappearance, the official story, or what little there was of it, left more questions than answers. A young man had vanished on a remote mountainside in Tenerife. No one saw him fall. No one heard him scream. His body wasn't found for weeks, and yet his final phone signal placed him near where search crews had been looking from the very beginning. And in the vacuum left by silence, rumours rushed in to fill the gaps. One of the most persistent and most explosive theories to emerge was this: that Jay had stolen an expensive watch. Not just any watch, but a luxury timepiece allegedly worth around £10,000. Some versions of the theory claim he'd taken it with the help of two Somalian kids. Others suggested he'd gone rogue, boasting about the theft in a Snapchat message and planning to sell it for cash. Then came the image. A blurry selfie, overlaid with a caption that sent social media into overdrive. But before we even get to the picture, we have to ask, where did this story come from? Who first said it? And why so many people, even some close to Jay, take it seriously? The theory didn't come out of nowhere. It began with whispers, claims from anonymous accounts on Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram. Then, within days, it exploded across Facebook groups, Telegram channels, and Reddit threads dedicated to the case. People who claimed to know Jay personally began referencing it. Some called it a joke, others swore it was true, and still others insisted it was the very reason he ended up at the Airbnb, far away from his friends, in a house with older men he barely knew. It wasn't just the watch itself that drew suspicion. It was the theory implied. That Jay hadn't just gone to a stranger's house and wandered off, that something had gone wrong inside those walls. That the people he was with, including Ayub Qasim, a known convicted drug dealer, weren't telling the full story. And that if Jay had crossed the wrong people, the results may have been far worse than an accident on a mountain path. This is why the watch theory refuses to die. Because it suggests motive, it introduces risk, and it adds a dark edge to a story that already feels incomplete. In the chapters ahead, we'll break this theory apart, from the viral image and who might really be in it, to the role of Qasim, the strange details in the caption, and whether this alleged theft could truly explain what happened to Jay Slater. But first we need to look closely at the image that started it all, and ask, was it even Jay? It was a single image, grainy, poorly lit, a selfie-style photo of a young man in a dimly lit car. But it wasn't the face that caught people's attention, it was the caption, and almost immediately, people began to claim it was Jay Slater. The photo tore through social media with dizzying speed. Telegram threads reposted it, TikTok videos dissected it, Twitter and Facebook users began arguing over whether the face in the image actually matched Jay's. At first glance, the resemblance was there. Similar haircut, similar jawline, similar build. But when friends and classmates began speaking out, many insisted that the image wasn't Jay at all. Some said the eyes were wrong. Others pointed to differences in the nose, the hairline, or even the phone used to take the picture. So where did the image come from? To this day, no one has conclusively identified the original source. It was screenshotted and circulated widely, but never tracked back to a known account. No original Snapchat, no metadata, no definitive time or place. Some believe it may have come from someone inside Jay's circle, a friend playing a joke, or someone trying to stir chaos. Others think it was entirely fabricated, a random photo of a lookalike used to throw fuel onto a growing fire. And then there's the possibility that it was Jay, but that the message was written in jest, never meant to be taken seriously. A throwaway comment, bravado, banter, nothing more. Still, the timing was strange. The image began circulating not long after Jay was reported missing. If it was real and recent, it could offer crucial context. If it was fake, then someone went to the effort of crafting a lie that made Jay look reckless, even criminal, at the very moment his family were begging for help. To date, Police have not publicly commented on the image, nor have they confirmed or denied its authenticity. What we're left with is a digital ghost, a low-resolution photo that may or may not show the victim at the heart of this mystery, and a caption that may or may not hold the key to why he ended up alone, frightened, and running through a mountain range at 8 a.m. Of all the words in that now infamous caption, few have caused more confusion or controversy than this. 2 Somalian kids. It's a vague phrase. No names, no details, no proof they ever existed. But it sparked a wave of speculation. Who were they? Were they locals, tourists, or were they older than the word kids suggests? Were they connected to Ayub Kasim or Stephen Rokas, the 2 men Jay was last seen with? Or were they completely separate people Jay had encountered earlier that night, possibly in the chaotic final hours of the festival? Some online sleuths immediately began digging. They claimed to have screenshots from people who knew the 2 men mentioned. Others said they were part of a robbery crew operating in Tenerife, a theory with no substantiated evidence, but one that took hold in Facebook groups dedicated to the case. But here's the reality. No official source. Not Spanish authorities, not British investigators, not even anonymous insiders have ever confirmed the existence of those 2 individuals. No police appeal mentioning them, no witness statements from the festival or the town. Nothing beyond a caption. So what if it wasn't literal? What if Somalian kids wasn't a reference to race or nationality at all, but slang, a figure of speech, a fabrication, an inside joke between friends, or a phrase thrown in to make a post sound more dramatic? Or worse, what if someone deliberately included that phrase to deflect blame, to shift suspicion away from the people Jay was actually with, and create the illusion of a different threat? It's also worth noting the racial implications. The phrase felt loaded, like a stereotype designed to provoke reaction. Was it meant to imply danger, criminality, violence? If so, it worked. The internet latched onto it with obsession. But the danger in chasing shadows is that we stop looking at what's real. And right now, what's real is this. We don't know who those 2 Somalian kids are. We don't even know if they exist. We speculate that this could be Ayub Kasim and Stephen Rokas. What we do know is where Jay spent his final night. At a remote Airbnb with 2 much older men, one of whom had a serious criminal history. So in the next chapter, we'll turn our focus to that setting and ask a more grounded question. Who actually owned the watch? If the story about a stolen watch is true, there's a fundamental question that changes everything. Who did the watch belong to? Because if it was real and valuable, then the identity of the owner could turn this from a rumour into a motive. Several theories have emerged, but none have been confirmed. The most widely circulated claim is that the watch may have belonged to someone at the Airbnb, most likely Ayub Kasim. Kasim was a 31-year-old man from the UK with a serious criminal background. In 2015, he was convicted for running a county lines drug operation and sentenced to 9 years in prison. He was known to use aliases, and by all accounts, he was far from a typical festival goer. So why was someone like him in Tenerife, staying in a secluded mountain property? Some speculate that Kasim may have been carrying high-value items, cash, drugs, or watches, either for personal use or business. If Jay got too close, if something went missing, or if a joke was taken seriously, it could have sparked a confrontation. But there are other possibilities. What if the watch belonged to someone else entirely? A dealer Jay met at the festival, a stranger in a bar, one of the alleged Somalian kids mentioned in the caption. Could Jay have come across an opportunity, made a mistake, and unknowingly involved himself in something dangerous? There's even a theory, unverified but persistent, that Jay never actually stole a watch. That the entire story was invented after his disappearance as a way to deflect suspicion away from others. If true, it would mean that the watch theory is not just a distraction, but a deliberate misdirection. Still, something about the theory stuck. The specific amount, £10,000. The tone of the caption. The fact that multiple people claimed Jay had mentioned something about a watch in the days prior. It all left a mark, even without confirmation. And that raises a darker question. If the watch was real and expensive, and it went missing, what would someone be willing to do to get it back? Tenerife is more than just a holiday island. It's a playground, not just for tourists, but for criminals, gang affiliates, and underworld figures who use party destinations to flaunt wealth, make deals, and blend in. Places like this, festivals, VIP pool parties, late-night clubs, are often full of individuals flashing luxury watches, designer clothes, and money. Some are wealthy partygoers, others not so innocent. That's where this version of the watch theory begins to evolve. If a watch was stolen, as the now infamous Snapchat caption claimed, who did it really belong to? What if the owner wasn't just a random person Jay encountered at the festival? What if the watch belonged to someone with power? Someone connected to the criminal underworld, someone who wouldn't tolerate theft, especially not in public. Criminals, especially those with reputation or street credibility, don't just report thefts. They retaliate. And they don't always do it themselves. They send messages through fear, violence, or silence. Here's where the theory turns darker. What if the stolen watch didn't belong to Kasim, but the word of the theft got back to him? Given Ayub Kasim's criminal background and past involvement in drug networks, it's not a stretch to believe that he might still be connected to people who operate by different rules. Some believe that Kasim may have snitched on Jay, passed the message along, offered him up as a way to protect himself from repercussions. In this version of events, Jay becomes the pawn, handed over to make amends for a crime he either committed or was blamed for. That would explain the fear, the panic, the sudden decision to flee a remote Airbnb without food, water, or a phone charge. As investigator Mark Williams Thomas noted, Jay left in a rush, distressed, and possibly afraid for his life. But there's another variation to consider. What if Jay didn't steal the watch alone? What if he was just the face of the theft, while Kasim and Rockes were the real culprits? In this scenario, Jay may have been used. A distraction, a scapegoat. When the situation got tense, Kasim and Rockes kept the watch and left Jay to take the fall. Perhaps someone came to the Airbnb looking for what was stolen. Perhaps Jay was told to run. Perhaps he realized too late he was being sacrificed. There is no evidence that anyone else arrived at the Airbnb that morning besides the people that Kasim told us about. But there is no evidence ruling it out either. No CCTV from that rural road. No eyewitnesses. No firm alibis. Just silence. And in that silence, this theory grows. That Jay Slater may have been targeted not just because of who he was, but because of something he was caught up in, something far more dangerous than he ever expected. Among the many unanswered questions in the case of Jay Slater, one stands out as perhaps the most fundamental. Why did Jay go to that Airbnb? He was nearly 20 miles away from his accommodation, separated from his friends, out of phone signal, in a mountainous remote area with no reliable transport, no shops, and no reason to be there, unless something or someone drew him in. The official explanation is that Jay had become separated from his friends and went back to the Airbnb with the two men he'd met at the festival, Ayub Kasim and Stephen Rockes. But that raises more questions than it answers. Jay was in a foreign country, likely under the influence, and with two men significantly older than him, one of whom had a known criminal background. Was it really a case of separating from friends, or was there something else on offer? Some believe Jay was lured there, that he was promised something, a party, drugs, money, even a lift back in the morning. Others suggest it may have been more calculated, a setup to isolate him, especially if there was tension over a stolen item. And the Airbnb itself? It was located in Masca, a stunning but secluded part of Tenerife, high in the mountains with winding roads and poor mobile signal. It's not the sort of place you stumble upon. You have to choose to go there. You have to plan it. So again, why would Jay agree to that? Unless he trusted the people he was with, or unless he didn't fully understand the risk. We also have to consider what state Jay was in. He had been partying for days. Some reports suggest drug use was involved, though none have been officially confirmed. If he was disoriented, sleep-deprived, or under the influence, he may not have seen the warning signs until it was too late. Then there's the early morning. By 8:30 a.m, Jay is on the move. He calls Lucy Law. He says he's lost. He says he has 1% battery. Whatever happened inside that Airbnb in the hours before, it clearly wasn't restful. Jay didn't leave calm. He didn't leave ready for the day. He left distressed, in a rush, without water or a charger, despite Kasim alleging that he offered Jay a charge when they arrived back at the Airbnb, through mountain terrain he didn't know. And it leads to a deeply unsettling possibility. That something happened at that Airbnb. A confrontation, a threat, a realization that he had to get away, fast. Something happened at that Airbnb. We don't know exactly what. No witness has come forward, no camera captured it, and no one inside the house has offered a clear, credible account of the hours before Jay vanished. But we do know this. By 8:30 a.m, Jay Slater was leaving in a rush, and he was scared, according to Mark Williams Thomas. In a phone call to Lucy Law, he said he was lost, that he didn't know where he was, that he needed water, and then the call cut off, just like that. So what could have gone wrong? One theory is that a confrontation took place inside the Airbnb, either over the alleged watch theft or something else entirely. If Jay was accused of taking something, tensions could have escalated quickly, especially if other people were involved. People who weren't part of the original group. People who may have arrived after the festival ended. Mark Williams Thomas, the former detective who independently investigated the case, reported that Jay left the house in a rush and was distressed. That language is important. It doesn't sound like someone taking a morning stroll. It sounds like someone getting away from something or someone. Could he have been threatened? Could he have seen or heard something that made him panic? Could someone have told him to leave, now, or face the consequences? It's also possible that Jay didn't even have time to think, that he was ordered out, or chased, or manipulated into fleeing as part of something larger, a punishment, a setup, or an attempt to erase the problem before it became public. Some speculate that Jay was assaulted and fled before it escalated. Others believe he may have overheard something incriminating and ran before he became a liability. And then there are those who think he was told to run, that it was staged to look like he'd gotten lost, while the real story remained locked behind closed doors. But we also have to consider Jay's mental state. If drugs or alcohol were involved, he could have been paranoid, dehydrated, exhausted, or all three. He may have believed he was in danger, even if no one directly threatened him. This is what makes this theory so murky. The fear was real, but what caused it? Whatever happened, real or perceived, it led Jay to do something completely irrational. Walk into a harsh and unfamiliar landscape without any of the basic tools needed to survive. That's not a decision you make unless you're desperate. Unless something's gone very wrong. In the next chapter, we pause to ask whether any of this, the caption, the watch, the people, the panic, could have all been a lie. Could this theory itself be the ultimate distraction? We've followed the watch theory through every twist, the image, the caption, the speculation, and the people who may have been involved. But now it's time to ask the uncomfortable question. What if it's not true at all? What if the entire story, the £10,000 watch, the Somalian kids, the caption, was never real? Not a crime, not a motive, but a fabrication, a distraction, a calculated misdirection. There are three possibilities here. First, the joke. Some believe the image and its caption were nothing more than a joke between friends, that it wasn't Jay in the photo, that the message was meant as satire, sarcasm, or typical festival bravado. In that scenario, it's not a confession, it's just noise. A badly timed joke that gained traction in the worst possible moment. If true, it means the internet took a screenshot and turned it into a theory that never had any basis in fact. The second theory is the lie. Others suggest that the image was manufactured, created deliberately after Jay's disappearance to stir drama or attention, possibly by someone seeking clout, or worse, someone trying to distort public perception. It wouldn't be the first time a high-profile case was flooded with false leads and fake screenshots. It happens more than we like to admit. And in a world of AI image manipulation, Snapchat overlays, and social media hysteria, creating a believable but false post isn't difficult. If this wasn't a lie, then the damage is even greater, because it pulled attention away from the facts and wasted precious time and energy. The third theory is the misdirection, but the most disturbing possibility is this. What if the theory was planted to cover something else? To shift suspicion away from the people Jay was actually with, to make the public look left while the truth was hiding on the right. If Kasim or others were involved in something far more serious, the watch theory could serve as a useful purpose, a decoy, a smokescreen, something that feels plausible enough to believe, but too murky to ever prove. That's the power of misdirection. It doesn't need to be true, it just needs to distract. And in this case, it may have done exactly that. Whether fact or fiction, the watch theory changed the tone of Jay Slater's case. In the early hours of his disappearance, the story was one of concern. A young British tourist, lost and alone in unfamiliar terrain. Friends and family launched appeals. Police began their search. The narrative was clear. Find Jay, bring him home. But once the watch theory entered the conversation, the story shifted. Jay was no longer just a missing person. Now in the eyes of some, he was a thief, a scammer, someone who may have brought trouble upon himself. That perception, even if completely unfounded, began to bleed into the public response. Comments on social media turned colder. Sympathy was mixed with suspicion. Some questioned whether Jay had been set up, but others, wrongly or not, began to question whether he deserved what happened. This is the danger of an unverified narrative. Once it takes hold, it doesn't just influence the public, it can shape how resources are allocated, what angles are explored, who gets interviewed, and how witnesses respond. The watch theory also overwhelmed the online discourse. Facebook groups, TikTok sleuths, Reddit threads, all became consumed by the idea of a stolen item. Real leads, alternative theories, and legitimate calls for help were drowned out by arguments over a single caption on a blurry image. To date, police have never confirmed the watch theory, nor have they publicly stated whether they investigated it in depth. But its presence alone altered the momentum of the search. It introduced doubt, division, and for Jay's family, it added a layer of trauma, being forced to watch strangers dissect their loved one's character based on an unverified rumour. But perhaps the greatest impact was more subtle. The watch theory feels plausible. It has all the ingredients of a believable story. Youth, crime, fast money, betrayal. That's why it stuck. Because in a case filled with silence, speculation filled the gaps. And this theory, whether true, exaggerated, or false, became the most widespread of them all. The watch theory is as persistent as it is unconfirmed. It began with a single image, a blurry photo with a proactive caption. From that moment on, it spiraled into a sprawling web of speculation. A £10,000 theft, 2 unnamed individuals, possible retaliation, and an alleged cover-up. We've explored it all. The origin of the story, the role of Ayub Kasim, the strange Airbnb in the mountains, the possibility of fear, flight, and a fatal mistake. The idea that Jay may have been set up or sacrificed, and the very real chance that none of it ever happened at all. But here's the hard truth. We still don't know. The stolen watch theory, like so much of this case, lives in the shadows. No official source has confirmed it. No verifiable witness has stepped forward, and no physical evidence has been made public to back it up. And yet, it lingers. Why? Because it offers something the official story does not. A motive, a reason for fear, a potential answer to why Jay Slater, a happy, healthy 19-year-old, would leave an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere, panicked, unprepared, and ultimately lost to the mountains. If the theory is true, it opens up a new, darker explanation for what happened, one that involves criminals, betrayal, and the violent consequences of crossing the wrong people. If it's false, it's still powerful, because it reveals just how quickly a rumour can become a narrative, and how, in the absence of clear answers, the world fills the silence with stories. Jay's family have never confirmed the theory, nor have they dismissed it. Like everyone else, they're still waiting for the truth, still trying to make sense of a tragedy that feels unfinished. As this series continues, we'll dive into more theories, each with their own questions, timelines, and unexplored angles. But for now, this is what we know. A young man is gone, a family is grieving, and somewhere in the noise, the truth remains hidden. Was it really about a watch? Or was that just a convenient place for the silence to begin? If you found this episode thought-provoking, we encourage you to stay with us as we continue this investigation, because the watch theory is just the beginning. In the next episode, we'll explore another possibility. Was Jay Slater lured to that Airbnb on purpose? Was this always meant to happen? We're breaking each theory down, fact by fact, question by question, to get closer to the truth Jay's family and the public deserve. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Silent Casebook and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter in this unfolding story. And if you have thoughts, theories, or information of your own, leave a comment below. Just keep it respectful, because behind every headline is a grieving family, and they deserve compassion.